A person can go up to Shemayim after 120 years of living in this world. He comes to Shemayim, the din begins, based in judgment begins. They start bringing all the Averas, they bring all the mitzvahs, and they start weighing it up. And there you are, standing there, in midst of judgment, and all of a sudden, from the distance, comes a bus. And this bus is coming closer and closer, and you can see that this bus is full of men, women, and children. And this bus takes itself and floats onto the mitzvah's side. And you think to yourself, what is this bus? What's the pshat in this bus? And they say to you in Shemayim as follows. In Shemayim they tell you what happened. It was a Tuesday afternoon, around 2:30 in the afternoon. It was a beautiful day outside, the sun was shining, the sky was blue as could be. And you were walking innocently down the road. And at that exact moment, there were Arabs in East Jerusalem, just down over here, who were, Rahman al-Islam, creating a bomb to be able to plant in that bus. They were going to plan to place it on that bus full of men, women, and children. And they were putting it all together. And exactly at that moment, when you were walking down the road, there was a sight on the other side of the road of an inappropriately dressed woman. And as you were walking down the road, your eye caught it from the side, and you turned away and said, no, I'm not looking. And at that exact moment, the bomb that these Arabs were going to place into that bus exploded in their face. And it didn't happen, it didn't make its way to the bus. And because of you, men, women, and children were all saved because of your zchus. The Toldos Aaron Rebbe once said over that this is exactly what happens when a person is faced with an Esoyin. When a person is in a situation that the Yetzer Hara is fire, it's burning within him. And he says, no thank you, not right now. And tonight, Be'ez Hashem, and over the next few weeks, what we want to discuss is basically, is it really that bad? Come on. You know, it's one of those things, but is it really that bad? You know, how bad is it? How bad can it possibly be? That's number one. Number two, what can we really do to stop it? How can it affect our lives, for the future of our lives? What it does to our neshama, what it does to ourselves, what it does to our marriage, what it does to our family. We'll speak about it, Be'ez Hashem. And you should just know, as a Hakdoma Ba'alma, many people have mentioned why you discuss this Barabim, because maybe it can cause people Hirurim and all sorts of things. I discussed it with Agoyin HaGodl, Rabbi Zul Orbach Shlita, and I asked him permission to discuss it in front of Bochrim, and he said, absolutely, this is something that we have to discuss. No problem whatsoever. Now, there are very, very many types of Bochrim in a yeshiva. There are some boys that come to a yeshiva that they want to learn. They're coming to shteig, they're coming to learn. Then you have other boys that, you know, they want to learn, okay, but they're not so enthusiastic, so into it. And then you have those guys that don't even want to learn, but they want to learn. You understand what I mean? It's the same thing over here. People generally don't want to hear these topics. Either they don't think it's so bad, or why tell me about it? What do I have to know about it? Let me not know about it. My belief is that the very fact that you guys right now are sitting here and people switched it on to watch this shir means that we already won half the battle. Because you already realize there's a problem and we have to do something about it. That means the ladder is against the wall. Now we have to start climbing. And Be'ez Hashem, over the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about Chazal. We'll talk about the way that the psychologists look at it. We'll talk about the Metzias. Maybe we'll talk about some stories of exactly what this does to us. You know, many people also think on the other side of the coin, it's not a gear to me. Me? I don't have a problem with these things. I don't know who can say that. But you have people that say these things. These topics are not really relevant to me. Talk to the other guys. So why am I discussing it in an open form with people over here that may not be negated to them? Could be. So Shom Shadron Zatzal once came to Borough Park, and he spoke in Borough Park about Shmira Shabbos, about keeping Shabbos. A whole fiery share about keeping Shabbos. And after the share, they said, Rabbi, that was a beautiful drasha. But can I ask you, why do you speak about Shmira Shabbos here in Borough Park? I mean, there's plenty of places in America to speak about it. Here in Borough Park? She said as follows. He said, when there's a fire in a house, you don't just spray the fire. You spray everywhere around the fire. Because if you only spray the fire, no, maybe it'll go out, maybe it'll take longer. But if you spray around the fire, you have more chance of containing it and stopping it from spreading more. So even if a person will look at himself and deep down, he'll know the truth, that it's not negated to him, if that's true, then he can say the reason why I'm speaking about it and the reason why it needs to be spoken about and the reason that we have to know it is because we have to stop it from spreading. And this is something that's very, very serious. As we'll see, Be'ez Hashem, these are halachas that often people don't realize the severity. You know, people have this idea that when it comes to women, so it's like a museum. You know, it's like a museum. You walk in a museum, you see clearly the signs, right? Look, but don't touch. Don't touch. Just look. So people do the same thing. What's the big deal? I'm looking. I'm not touching. Chas v'shalom. Where am I telling you this from? Everybody says it's a Rambam. What do you think of Rambam? The Rambam writes in Hilchos Tshuva. Unbelievable Rambam. Halacha Dalet says the Rambam. Hamistakil ba'arayas. If a person looks at the wrong sites, at forbidden sites, Mala al daitu she'im bekach klum. Says the Rambam, he didn't do anything. Says the Rambam, and he continues that I think to myself, what did I do? I touched her? I had relations with her? Chas v'shalom? No, I just looked. What's the big deal? I just looked. Says the Rambam, how difficult it is, these halachos, because people think they didn't do anything wrong. Nothing wrong. I didn't come to anything bad. Therefore, it's okay. Says the Rambam, v'hu eino yodea shre'iyas einayim ovoin godel she goyremes legufon shalarai shenema lo yisurach ve'levavchem. Says the Rambam, there's a pasuk in the Torah that says, don't look. And the Rambam says that's why this is one of the most difficult ones. Because doing tshuva on something you know you did wrong, no, we all know we'll do. But to do tshuva on something you didn't even think was something wrong, that's where it gets difficult. And says the Rambam, Rabbi said, it's not me. People have this in their mind. I'm only looking. What did I do? What did I cause? So bad. Oh. Says the Rambam, A, you're not going to do tshuva, and B, you are over on the Yisod Orais of Loisa Surach Ve'Levavchem, which we'll speak about Be'ez Hashem. And there's Kama Chazals all over Shas, right? Gemara Avodah Zorah, Davchav, Shabbos, Samach Daled, Ksubov Yudzayin, that talk about it. The Beis Yosef and Even Ezer, Simon Chav Aleph writes, Osel istakel be'eshes ish min ha-Torah, Shenema v'loisa surach ve'levavchem yachvei nechem. The Rambam adds a pneuya doraisa b'hiru. If a person's maharo, even by a single girl, we're dealing with isur doraisas over here. We're not dealing with chumras. We're not dealing with midas chasidus. We're not dealing with hidurim, mahadrin, mena mahadrins. We're dealing clear-cut, 100% clear doraisas straight from the Torah, which we'll speak about Be'ez Hashem in much depth with what Chazal have to say about this. The Rambam continues to write, very interesting Rambam in the Akdama, Mishnah Torah. The Rambam, as we know, did a very interesting thing. The Rambam actually split up the Torah into different parts, something that nobody else did, and we have a Rishon over here that took the Torah. Go look at the set of a Rambam, the back of the Beis Medrash, you will see that he splits up the Torah into various parts. This is his own decision. The Rambam decided to make the Seder on his own. There's a Sefer called Sefer Kedusha. Kedusha means holiness. Says the Rambam, there are two halachas in here. And those two halachas are, number one, meichnas asuros, the halachas of eating something that's not kosher. And number two, arayas. Says the Rambam, why are these two together? Because these are the two halachas that separate us from the goyim. They make us kodesh, they make us holy. Because the moment we realize that we're a yid and we're special, we're holier, and we come from a higher place, our neshama, we'll speak about it, comes from a lekay mimel, comes from kisei hakoved, and comes down to this world, then we'll have the realization of how to treat that neshama, and what happens if we make it dirty, which we'll speak about. People often think as well, what's the big deal? I looked, no, so bad. So let me tell you something like this. There's a Gemara in the Avodah Zorah. The Gemara in Avodah Zorah tells us when a person is a choyle, when a person's sick, choyle meaning he's about to die, the Malach HaMovos stands on top of him. The Malach HaMoves stands on top of him and tells us the Gemara that the Malach HaMoves is Molei Einayim. He's full of eyes. Full of eyes. That's what the Gemara tells us. And Ad Kan Lashon Gemara comes along with Reb Nosson Adler. Some Sefer brings his Rebbe, Reb Nosson Adler. And Reb Nosson Adler says like this: when a person looks at something bad, when a person uses his eyes that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave him, the most beautiful and most precious gift that a person can have, and he takes it and uses it on something that's not appropriate, on a woman that's not dressed in the correct way, and he looks and he has anah from that. It says with Nosson Allah, you are creating eyes in that Malach HaMoves. And when a person dies, if you ever saw, we should never be zocher, we should never see such a thing. A person can shake before he dies. So with Nosson Allah, it comes because a person's seen the Malach HaMoves full of thousands and thousands of eyes that he created in that Malach HaMoves. So yes, it's a moment of looking, but it lasts forever. Tshuva obviously will fix it up, but if you don't do tshuva, it's going to be there forever. And it's going to be permanently in there. And I want to tell you something else. There's a Gemara in Kedushin Daf Pei, an unbelievable Gemara. The Gemara tells us about Tanoim that laughed at people who were doing Averis. They used to laugh at over Averis, Arayas, and these things. They used to laugh at them. Come on, what's the big deal? What's the matter with you? Why do you have to do these Averis? It's so easy to stop yourself. Until the Rebbeinu Shalom said, no, don't laugh at them. Because it's a difficult Nisayon. It's a very difficult Nisayon. Arayas is difficult. Don't make light of it. So the Rebbeinu Shalom made them a Nisayon. The Rebbeinu Shalom got the Satan to dress up as the most beautiful woman that ever walked the face of this earth. And the Satan dressed up as this woman. And he tempted them. And he started doing all sorts of tricks to try and tempt them, and started to work. Until the Rebbeinu Shalom said, stop, Ad Kan, end. I just wanted to show you how easy it is for a person to be tempted. Don't laugh at those people that are nichshol and fall into the trap of Arayas. Says the Ben Ish Chai and the Ben Yehoyada, I don't understand. Why did he simply not get a real woman, a gorgeous, beautiful woman, to go walk in front of them? What, the Satan had to dress up like a woman? Like, what's the whole play going on? Took the Ben Yehoyada, an unbelievable pshat. Took the Ben Ish Chai pashat. Because if it would have been a beautiful woman, a real woman, and they would have looked, that looking would have lasted in their eyes forever. Yes, they would have forgotten about it. Yes, they would have continued with life. But once you look, it's always there. And you can't get rid of it unless you do tshuva. That's the reason why the Satan had to be the one to dress up as the woman. Let me continue. The Gemara in Yuma, the Gemara in Yuma tells us as follows. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the mon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the mon in the midbar. Why? Tells us the Gemara, Leman anoischa, to afflict you. What is it? What's the affliction? The Gemara says, Kasha, what's the affliction? You gave us the mon in the midbar for what? To be afflicted? What affliction was it? Says the Gemara, because you can't compare a person that has pas besaloi to someone that does not have pas besaloi. Meaning, when you're in the midbar, you had no idea where the next meal was coming. You had to wait for it to fall from Shemayim. You had no idea when it was going to come. That's an affliction. Tells us the Gemara, ain't a doima. You can't compare someone that sees the food to someone that doesn't. Mon always look the same. It's not the same when you eat a food that always and every day looks the same. Maybe it tastes different, but it looks the same. That's an anoischa, that's an affliction. And therefore, says Chazal, that was the affliction. The affliction was they couldn't see the food. And when a person sees their food, which is what Rabbi Yosef tells us in the Gemara over there in Yuma, a blind person is never satisfied. Because when you don't see it, when your eyes don't have the benefit of seeing it, you don't have the same satisfaction. There's a certain satisfaction when you see something. In fact, the Gemara tells us over there, Rabbi, that a person should always eat by day, should always see what he's eating, because in order to have a good geshmak, ask the Gemara, continues. What does it mean when the Apostle says, Toiv mare einayim mehaloch nefesh? Better is the sight of the eyes more than the walking of the soul. Omer Reish Lakish. Good is the sight to the eye of looking at a woman more than the Maisa itself. That means Chazal are telling us that a person has more hana by looking at something he shouldn't be looking at, more than the Maisa itself. What's the pshat? Rav Wolbe Zatzal said, you know what the pshat is? The pshat is imagination. This is Hollywood. Imagination. The imagination builds us up into thinking what could be, what might be, all these thoughts that go into our heads. That's the imagination. That's Pshat and Chazal. Chazal are telling us better is the sight with a person's eyes of a woman than the Maisa itself. Because the Maisa can only be the Maisa. But the sight in your eyes can fill a person with imagination of all sorts of things. And that's exactly what Hollywood is doing. The film industry know exactly how to do this. That's what they'll do. They'll make a film, and they'll put a scene in there, and they'll give you just the amount that you need to see to get your imagination going. And I once asked a group of boys, not over here, a different place, what's worse? A movie that's a bad movie, meaning a non-appropriate movie, or a book that's a non-appropriate book? Now, I don't know what anybody else would say, but the group that I asked said for sure the book. And I said, why? But there's no pictures there. You don't see anything. They say, but the imagination can build and can build and can build. And that's exactly how the Yetzer Hara gets us. He puts it into our brain. When you see a sight, what would happen if? And you start thinking and the imagination goes out. And that's exactly what Chazal are telling us. Chazal are telling us exactly this. I want to tell you a scary Rabbeinu Yonah Rabbi Say. This Rabbeinu Yonah is unbelievable. And this really hits home to which Aveira we're dealing with over here. And this is what today's share is about. Let's first understand the severity. Before we can give the eitzes of what to do, before we can understand the stories, before we can go through all the other inyanim, let's first understand, number one, what are we dealing with? Listen to this Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah in Pirkei Avos, in the Mishnah in Perikei, says, famous Mishnah, if somebody embarrasses his friend Barabim in public, that's it, it's over. You get nothing when you get up there. You embarrass somebody else, you know what that means? Everyone knows the Mishnah. Says Rabbeinu Yonah a very interesting thing. We know in Hilchos Shabbos there's something called an Av and a Tolda. The Av is the primary, that's the Ikka. And then you have the Tolda, that so to speak, the branches that stem from it, which are so to speak the secondary, but they're also very chomer. Now we know on Shabbos Kodesh, if a person does an Av, he's Chayv Skila. If a person does a Tolda, he's also Chayv Skila. Has the same severity. The Av and the Tolda. The primary and the secondary. Both have the same severity. Av and Tolda. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, listen carefully. You got the big three. You got Avodah Zarah, you got Shvichas Domim, and Gilui Arayos. What do we know about all of these three? Yorig Va'al Yava. That means if a person, Chas v'Sholom, comes over to you and says, hey, I've got a gun against your head, go and kill somebody, you have to be killed. If somebody goes, Chas v'Sholom, over to you with a gun and says, go and serve that Avodah Zarah, bow down, you have to be killed. If someone goes over to you and says, commit adultery, you have to be killed. That's the Av. The Av is killing, doing Avodah Zarah, and actual adultery. Gilui Arayos. That's the Av. What's the Tolda? Which is just as severe. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, listen carefully. Rabbeinu Yonah says when it comes to Avodah Zarah, anything similar, maybe it's money, maybe it's your phones, anything could be a type of Avodah Zarah. That's the Tolda. Just as severe, but it's a Tolda. Then you have, for example, Shvichas Domim. The Tolda will be embarrassing somebody, not actually killing them with a knife, but embarrassing someone, just as severe. Same punishment, just as severe, but it's a Tolda. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, what's the Tolda of Gilui Arayos? Because we have this imagination that Gilui Arayos, someone puts a gun to your head, means go and sleep with that woman. That's the Av. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, what's the Tolda? Says Rabbeinu Yonah, Mestakel, Oiledaber, Yahorek, Va'al Yavor. That means, says Rabbeinu Yonah, to Rishon, and that's Halacha L'Maisa. That just as if a person would come over to you and say, commit adultery with that woman, you have to be killed. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, it's the same thing with Mestakel B'noshim. That if a person's looking at a woman, Yahorek, Va'al Yavor. And I'll bring you a Chazal. There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin Ayin Hey. Everyone knows the Gemara, famous Gemara, Rabbi Say. The Gemara tells us a scary Gemara of a man that was walking along and he saw a woman. And he fell in love with this woman. But not stam. So Rabbi says Chazal, it's a Gemara. He didn't fall in love with this woman. He was sick with love for this woman. He couldn't have any other thoughts. His whole life was this woman, ad kidei kach, that he was going to commit suicide. He went over, tells us Chazal, to the doctor. And so he went over to the Rav, and he went to the Rav and he said, Rabbi, I just have a little small question for you. I'm in love with this woman. Can I be with her? And the rabbi said, what do you mean? I understand that the doctor told you it's going to die, and I told you it's a serious situation, but this is B'kwach. This is Yoreg Val Yarva. You can't do anything. Yoreg Val Yarva. You've got to allow yourself to be killed. You can't go anywhere near her. So he said, okay, the rabbi told me no, I don't do it. And he continued, and eventually he couldn't take it anymore. He went back to the doctor. He said, doctor, what should I do? I'm not allowed to be together with her. The rabbi doesn't allow me. So the doctor says, okay, no problem. Why don't you allow her? Rabbi says, Chazal. Why? The doctor said, allow this woman to stand in front of you without any clothes. She should stand in front of you without any clothes, and that may possibly take away this terrible love that you have for her, and you'll be calmed. So he went back to the rabbi and said, Rabbi, the doctor holds mamish b'koach nefesh, I'm going to die if not. I need to ask her to stand in front of me without any clothes. Yorig va'al yavo. Not touching her, not going anywhere near her, but just allowing her to stand in front without any clothes. Paskins the Gemara is yorig va'al yavo. That's what the Gemara tells us. The Gemara continues to say the same thing if you stand behind a wall and talk to her. Rabbi Say Chazal are telling us over here, it's a Chazal, Paskin Rabbeinu Yonah in Ovis, that if a person, hamistakel, but it means bekavona, we'll talk about it, shaloi bekavona as well, when a person bahano looks at a woman to enjoy, to get the payers, to have his thoughts going, Paskins the Gemara, this is Yorig Va'al Yava. A bocha came over to me, Rabbi say Maisa Shahoya, and he said to me, Rebbe, what should we do? The Yetzer Hara is so big. How does the Rebbeinu Shalom want to survive? It's impossible. The Rebbeinu Shalom should take away the Yetzer Hara. But that also can't do. Because as we've spoken about this morning, we spoke about the fact that however good something is, it also has a bad side to it. And the good side keeps the survival of the world going. And we'll just finish with this, Rabbi say, for this week. If you go behind the thoughts, right before a person decides and makes that decision, I'm going to look, I'm going to press the buttons on my phone, on my computer, or whatever it might be, right before, what is he thinking? What's going on in his brain? What's going on is an unspoken promise. There's an unspoken promise saying, there's something here that will pleasure you. There's something here that you will enjoy. I'm offering you something. What is it? You don't even know. You can't even put it into words. But there's something in the back of your mind telling you, this is geschmack. This is something that's going to give me pleasure. And then if a person, chas v'sholem, does it, it's empty. Doesn't get that pleasure. He walks away without the pleasure. That thing that was telling him, it's going to give you all the pleasure, it's gone. It's like salty water, I always say. When you drink some salty water, if you're thirsty, it's not going to quench the thirst. You're just going to be more thirsty. So it's the same thing over here. Yeah, there's something over there telling you you're missing something. Get this and you'll be happy. Get this and you'll be pleasured. And then you get there and you realize you're just more thirsty. You never quenched your thirst because there was nothing actually there at all. And Rabbi said we'll talk about this as well, how it affects a person's life. How many people gave up their life and their family and wives for one meiser of pleasure? What did it get them? A meiser of pleasure that after they felt nothing and empty, and they gave up their life. And it could be for a person that's married, he gives up his family. It could also be for us, where we're holding before we're married, and we're working on Be'ez Hashem, we will get married. How's it going to affect our wives? How's it going to affect the relationship with our wives? What's going to happen when our minds are so full of the things we think are geschmack, and then we get married, all of a sudden it's not so geschmack. And then all of a sudden you don't have a happy marriage, you don't have a happy family, you're not a happy person. Rabbi said there's a lot more to discuss, a tremendous amount more to discuss, but Be'ez Hashem, tomorrow and next week, Be'ez Hashem, next Sunday night, we shall continue the shir. There's a lot more to go, Be'ez Hashem. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.